eventually becomes the new support for this. Questions on that? Yeah. So that was ascending triangle, this one. Now if you go back to the descending triangle, which is this, it's just reverse of what the ascending triangle is. And it's considered as a bearish pattern, that is breakdown pattern. The lower trend line should be horizontal, connecting near identical lows, connecting near identical lows. It's pretty much reverse of this. For ascending, it was the top was connecting the highs. Now the bottom one is, so the lower trend line should be horizontal, connecting the near identical lows. It doesn't have to be the same or exact. The upper trend line declines diagonally towards the apex. The breakdown occurs when the price collapses through the horizontal trend line support as a downtrend. So the lower down trend line, which was support, now becomes a resistance. So it's exactly opposite of what we just saw on the ascending. Look, so if you look at the chart, it's on September 10th, 2020. Again, it's an hourly chart. Generally, these patterns are easy to find or locate on hourly or 4-hour chart. It's more finer, you know, as the duration is shorter. So if you look at this, it's connecting the lows.
What are you talking?
This line actually should be here. Yep. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
I'll just try to zoom out a bit. Kind of drew it. Kind of like drew the converging line a bit early on this side. So it's basically connecting the lows on the horizontal line and the diagonals on the upper trend line. So this basically actually not a good example.
Yeah, because here it
Because
didn't.
here it's going actually the best example would have been like, you know, if I drew it somewhat back here. I'm not doing anything fancy here, so it's just like basically connecting these two low points here on the horizontal trend line. And this, the top trend line is basically just connecting the highs, and it kind of, breaks down from here. This point that was support or acting like a support earlier becomes the new resistance. This doesn't mean that, the price will hunker around here for a while. It becomes the new resistance. It can breach through this resistance and continue the pattern. Or it can go further down, and then the new support is somewhere here down. And this support that was the original support becomes a new resistance. With regards to the symmetrical triangles, shown here. Again, it doesn't have to be exact symmetrical. I'll show you in a second. There are two scenarios in the symmetrical triangle again. It can either break out this top trend line, or it can break down through the bottom trend line. So a symmetrical triangle is composed of diagonal falling upper and rising lower trend lines. And when the price moves towards the apex, it will kind of eventually breach either the upper trend line that becomes the breakout or an uptrend, a bullish trend on rising prices, or it kind of breaches the lower trend line, forming a breakdown or a downtrend or a bearish. Let's take a look at the first option, symmetrical triangle, right? So look at this symmetrical triangle. This scenario is more so suited for a breakdown. So just kind of two trend lines merging at the apex, connecting the highs here and the lows. And here it kind of breaks down, becomes a downtrend. Right. In a similar scenario, for a symmetrical triangle, see, this is not like flat horizontal line up top or a flat horizontal line at the bottom, just kind of symmetrical. But if you look at it, it becomes a breakout at the upper trend line. So it becomes a breakout and an uptrend here. So that's what is meant. So if you look at the ascending triangle again, this is a bullish pattern. And a symmetrical triangle with a breakout on an uptrend. So these two kind of indicate a bullish pattern. In a similar way, if you look at a descending triangle, it's a bearish pattern. It kind of breaks down here. And with a symmetrical triangle, it breaks down, also becomes a downtrend or a bearish pattern. Any questions on that?
it will become easier.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you have to keep on looking at the chart patterns and stuff to figure it out, what kind of pattern is forming. In the beginning, it's not easier, and even for me when I started the chart analysis and stuff, I used to practice every day, so that's how it is. The more you practice, it becomes second nature. It's not really rocket science or too complicated for anyone to understand. Uh, Not at all. So
True.
technical analysis is patterns, indicators. Just looking at it, you can um, tell where the market is heading. You can tell the trend. So, so the more we practice, the better it is. So, so just to kind of like recap trend lines, we can just make it by here. You see the second option in TradingView. It's called a trend line. You click on it, there's like multiple options. You'll see arrows and stuff. But the first option, trend line, just drawing lines connecting a series of prices. That's what it is. So this is an example for an ascending triangle. If you want to get a better picture, you can go to a line chart to see, how it's fluctuating between these lines and how it kind of like, wiggles in this channel and converges here. So it's a perfect example. And I didn't spend much time looking at it. Just before the session, uh, I looked at the hourly chart. It's kind of like, it's going back. We are in October, right? So when I came to August, this was a perfect example to share. So this is a perfect example for ascending triangle. The top trend line is horizontal connecting the highs, equal highs or similar highs. The bottom is a diagonal connecting uh, these lows here. And one before it converges, it kind of breaks out the top trend line. This top trend line that was acting as a resistance for this duration becomes the new support. And the second thing, second triangle is a descending one. Again, if you go to the line chart, it just shows, how it's moving. It doesn't really like, break down a lot. It just breaks down and then just kind of moves. So the top trend line is basically a diagonal line connecting the highs here and the horizontal line connecting the lows. Before it converges, it kind of breaks down. And with the symmetrical triangle, again, if you go to the line chart, it shows a perfect example. See how it's navigating in this symmetrical trend line channel. Before it breaks out, it's break down, actually not break out, it's actually breaking down, forming a downtrend. The fourth one was the symmetrical triangle with a breakout at the top, forming a bullish pattern. So if I click at the line chart, it shows how it navigates between the two um, trend lines, breaks out just before this apex here. And this forms a bullish pattern, at least for this duration.